Good morning and welcome to Friday. Yes, it's Friday. I'm amazed at times to see how our week flies along. But yes, it's Friday. We've had a full week. We have been able to share our journey together and we've had some reflections, and I trust that during the course of the week that you would have in some way or another been able to experience some growing within you. No matter how small it is, the reality is that we are all in the process of growing and transforming, and we must keep that in our sights at all time. The ultimate goal is union with God. That's what we're after. The actual process, the actual path is God's path. But we keep in our minds the fact that we are seeking to be at one with God in all things that we do, in all things that we say. That's what our purpose is, and we are heading constantly in that direction. So the week is gone. I give thanks for you. I give thanks for the opportunity to have been able to journey with you this week. And I trust that as we go into other weeks, that God may allow us the opportunity to be together and to share in this journey. So we give thanks as we come into this Friday morning and we see where God is taking us this day as we come into our time of meditation. And in this period of meditation today, as it is the end of the week, and we want to be able to just rest in the presence of the divine, just to be able to feel that divine presence within us as we go through that process of being open to receive all that God has in store for us. We open our hearts, we open our minds, we bring ourselves into our hearts, and we allow ourselves to be there for a few moments as we come into that wonderful space and we ask the divine to allow us simply to be, to be present, to be at one with, to know that God is here, God is with us. And so we feel the presence as we consciously breathe and come into our hearts. And in our hearts, we feel that divine presence, that light, that joy, that peace. As we breathe the freshness of a new day, as we realize that we are here. We're here for yet another day. We don't know what tomorrow will bring, but we know that we are here today. We don't even know if we will see the entire day through to its close. But we're here now. And we are in each other's company now. And we feel each other's presence. And we give thanks. We give thanks for all that we have shared in this past week. For we've shared more than just words. Our spirits have been connected. And we have felt each other. And we've been encouraged by each other. So we continue to grow, to move forward, and to allow God's will to be done in our lives. And so we ask in this moment that we may become fully aware of God's presence in us. Just in this moment. Just in this place of peace, of stillness. Turning our attention now to scriptures. We read Turn our attention now to the scriptures. We read from Luke's Gospel. Jesus went down to Capernaum, a city in Galilee, and was teaching them on the Sabbath. They were astounded at his teaching, because he spoke with authority. In the synagogue, there was a man who had the spirit of an unclean demon. And he cried out with a loud voice, "Let us alone. What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." But Jesus rebuked him, saying, "Be silent, and come out of him." When the demon had thrown him down before them, he came out of him without having done him any harm. They were all amazed, and kept saying to one another, "What kind of utterance is this? For with authority and power he commands the unclean spirits, and out they come." And a report about him began to reach every place in the region. The word of the Lord. The beauty of Jesus' ministry in the world, a ministry that we have been able to witness time and again as Jesus continues his work in our midst. A ministry of love, a ministry of compassion, a ministry of deliverance, a ministry of healing. And this morning's passage is no different. It speaks in a similar way to Jesus' compassionate heart, forever reaching out to someone else, to bring them deliverance, to bring them an opportunity to live and to grow and to be. The passage speaks of an unclean demon. That's the terminology used in that day. In our day, we may speak of some kind of entity that seems to be taken over. You may even speak of some war going on within himself, something that he's struggling with. And we all know this because we all have our quote-unquote demons, those areas within ourselves that we continually wrestle with. And sometimes they overpower us. You can see this where young people in our day are beginning to harm themselves. And they're speaking of voices, and they're unsettled because there is conflict within them, and they don't always have an avenue for the resolution of that conflict. More and more, science is helping us to understand this human condition. But the bottom line is the same. No matter what we may term the experience or how we may look at the experience, the reality is that there is the need for deliverance. Persons need to be delivered and assisted with this challenge that they have. A challenge that can cause us to do serious bodily harm. Some folks have to take medication to just silence what's going on within them. Others have to take medication so that their anxiety can be controlled. We've got all manner of names at this time for it. But the end game is the same. This human self that we call ourselves, in many ways we don't have a clue what's going on. But at the same time, God has not abandoned us. And we have tools that we can use if we are only willing to be compassionate and be with the other. Jesus was compassionate. The voices that worked within this particular man shouted at Jesus, accosting Jesus. And Jesus said, "Be still and come out. Be silent. Be silent." Jesus knows what's really going on. Jesus knows the human condition. Jesus had just come out of the wilderness some short time ago, and he wrestled with his own experiences. So Jesus understands that there is the need for some strength in order to be able to overcome these experiences. Jesus was able to find it within himself, assisted no doubt by the divine Spirit of God. But most persons haven't trained themselves into being open to the Spirit. to receive the Spirit and to allow the Spirit to grant them the strength to overshadow these negative voices, these dark spaces within ourselves. And this is why it is so important that persons who consider themselves to be connected to a faith community, that they develop the spiritual muscles so that in times when these voices, these demonic experiences come about, that there's enough strength of spirit that we can overcome. And we all have it to some degree or another. Those voices, those self-doubting voices, those voices that try to give us the impression that we're not worthy, we're not good enough, we shouldn't be here, we shouldn't be doing this, we shouldn't be doing that. And oftentimes, we are at the mercy of these voices. Oftentimes, they're in control. They take over our lives. You see persons who become paranoid. They're concerned about everything. They become fearful. Fearful that this is going to happen. Fearful that that's going to happen. This is how it shows up in our midst these days. But with the divine presence, we are reminded that perfect love casts out fear. This is why it's so important for us to perceive ourselves as divine beings, as beings of love, and not allow fear to in any way get a foothold in our lives, because it takes over. And yes, if you speak with some folks, they will tell you that they can feel that fight going on in them. They can hear and they know that this is not me. This seems like somebody else. They can see themselves when they're getting into various moods and activities, and they realize that they seem to have no power in themselves to help themselves. They're just at the mercy of whatever it is that's flowing through them. This is our real experience. It's not something that is reserved for sacred scripture. And at the same time, it is not about what Hollywood does with the exorcists and head spinning and all that sort of thing. It's not about that. Most of us will not have those kind of extreme experiences. But what we will have is that sense of something taking us over. In a moment of anger, in a moment of frustration, we get caught in something. And we need to have the presence of mind to be able to withstand these negative energies that emerge from within us. Jesus helps this person out. But we must also have the strength within us to help ourselves out. And to help our children out. As so oftentimes our children are suffering under the pressure of all that's going on around them. All the changes that seem to be taking place in the world. Sometimes it's too much. But we don't always have those compassionate people around us whose lights are shining brightly and in whose presence we feel that sense of stillness, that sense of calm, that sense of peace. We see it there in the story today. Jesus presents himself in the midst of all the shouting, and he says, "Be silent. Peace, be still." Jesus, in a sense, brings the man back to his real senses through the avenue of stillness, through the avenue of peace. Jesus doesn't fight, but Jesus creates an atmosphere of stillness and silence, and he calls for that silence. And we need to be able to have that strength within us that can call for the silence in the midst of the turmoil, so that we're not caught up, but that we can always be present, fully present, and mindful. Jesus declares this authority over that presence that seemed to be overtaking the man. As followers of Jesus, we too, following Jesus' example, can claim authority over all that is going on within us and also within others. But to do this, we must stay in our power, in our divine power, in that place of peace, in that place of true love and serenity, where God is really present, where God's power flows through us. If we are in turmoil, we are blocked up, and the divine grace, which is so needed in the life of another, is hindered, because we have shown up in that moment as an agent of God's grace. But if we ourselves are conflicted, then our ability to do the work is jeopardized. So the focus here isn't on the demoniac or the man with the unclean demon. The focus must always be on Jesus. See what Jesus is doing. See how Jesus presents himself. And when we see that, then we know how we must be in this world. We too must be as Jesus is. May we learn how to follow and be as Jesus is.